Hi வணக்கம் வெல்கம் டு Vijay ஸ்பீக்ஸ். இன்னைக்கு ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் 11 கவர்மெண்ட்டில் கொடுத்த அசைன்மெண்ட்டுக்கான ஆன்சர்ஸ் பார்க்கலாம். ஸோ ஃபர்ஸ்ட் யூனிட்டில் கொடுத்துருக்காங்க அசைன்மெண்ட். ஸோ முதல்ல 1 mark questions. In this lesson, the portrait of a lady, the author describes about his grandmother. ஸோ யாருடைய போர்ட்ரேட் அங்கே வீட்டில் இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு கேட்கும்போது the grandfather's portrait was hung above the mantelpiece. The village school was attached to the temple. Then what did the grandmother give the dogs? Though chapatis were thrown to the dogs by the grandmother. The grandmother spent most of her time by the spinning wheel. The happiest time of the day for grandmother was feeding the sparrows. A red shroud na or a tuni was wrapped around the dead body of the grandmother. And what is the derivative of approved? Veru approved kuduthirundanga approval answer irukkalam, but approved kuduthanala unapproved. The meaning of the word dilapidated. So dilapidated means damaged. Adutha all the ministers took the task seriously. A very short answer paakalam. Why was the author left with his grandmother in the village? The author's parents left him with his grandmother in the village because they went to live in the city. So it's a very short answer, ஒரு லைன் இருந்தால் போதும். Where did the author study in his childhood days? The author studied in a village school. What subjects were taught by the priest in the village? The alphabet and the morning prayer. When the author wanted to go abroad for his higher studies, was his grandmother sentimental? No, she wasn't sentimental. How did the grandmother spend her time in the afternoon? The grandmother spent her time in the afternoon feeding the sparrows. Describe the portrait of the grandfather. The grandfather wore a big turban, loose-fitting clothes. He had a long white beard and he looked 100 years old. Describe the appearance of the grandmother. She was old and wrinkled. She was short, fat, slightly bent, yet beautiful in spotless white. Why did the author's grandmother thump a dilapidated drum? The author's grandmother thumped a dilapidated drum in joy and sang the song of homecoming of warriors. Here, the grandson has returned from abroad. How did the sparrows react for the funeral ceremony of the grandmother? The sparrows were very mute, very silent, and they flew away without taking note of the breadcrumbs. They didn't even touch it. And then the two long answers. Moving on to the poetry questions. Once upon a time. Who is the speaker of the poem? The father. What is the relationship between the narrator and the listener? Father and son. What do you mean by laugh with their teeth? Which means a fake laugh without emotions. What does the poet long for? The poet longed for sincerity. What are fangs referred to? Fangs refer to teeth of a snake. What is cocktail face? A face with mixed emotions. I've learned to wear many faces like dresses. So here like is there, so figure of speech is simile. What has the poet learnt? The poet has also learned to change his face. What is meant by muting things? Real emotions in silent stage. What is the meaning of unlearn? To get rid of learning. What is meant by search behind my shadow? Here people are hypocritical and they don't mean what they say. What do you mean by eyes block cold eyes? Eyes that lack expression. What does the poet desire to unlearn and relearn? Why? The poet wants to unlearn all the muting things of the world and he wants to relearn to laugh genuinely because he wants to be innocent and true always. How is the poet's laugh reflected in the mirror? His laugh looked like snake's bare fangs, teeth of the snake. Once upon a time, they used to laugh with the eyes. Here, laugh with the eyes means the laughter was genuine. Mention the qualities the child and the adult in the poem symbolize. They symbolize genuineness and fakeness. What does the poet mean when he says goodbye? Why? When he says goodbye, he means get rid of. He doesn't want to invite visitors to his home. Pick out the expression that indicate conflicting ideas. He says sometimes, come again, but at last he says, door shut. What happens to the poet when you visit someone for the third time? The doors are shut. What must be the reason? Because nowadays people are very fake in inviting even guests. What pleasantries did the poet use to fake cordiality? Glad to meet you, goodbye. These are fake cordiality. Let's look at the non-detailed answers now. Bob was 18 years old. And who stayed in New York? Jimmy. Bob went to the West. Jimmy and Bob grew up together in New York. The two friends departed before 20 years. The waiting man pulled out his handsome watch. The scarf pin of Bob was a diamond. Bob was a criminal in Chicago. The place where they met before 20 years was a restaurant. How far Bob has come to meet his friend? 1,000 miles. Describe the appearance of the policeman on the beat. He was physically strong. What did the policeman keep doing on his run? He was trying doors, means knocking doors after doors to check whether people have locked and left. Why were the streets devoid of people? Because it was 10 p.m. already, there were chill gusts of wind and there was rain. Who was the tall man in the story? He was just a plain clothes officer. What is the most significant happening in the story to be analyzed? That time can change people's traits. Describe the scene in the beginning of the story. The story begins in a narrow street and the shops were almost being closed. It was 10 p.m. at night and a policeman was on the beat. What is the climax of the story after 20 years? The climax is that two friends who got separated 20 years ago are now a policeman and the other a criminal. How did the cop come to understand that Bob had been successful in the West? The cop realized on seeing the scarf pin, which was diamond, and the watch, that he had been very successful. But why didn't Jimmy Wells, being a cop himself, arrest Bob? Because his friend has traveled 1,000 miles to meet him and he didn't want to disappoint him by arresting by himself, and so he has sent a plainclothesman. Who do you think has been more successful between the two? Jimmy is more successful because he is a policeman, a very sincere officer, but he is also friendly and he cared for Bob a lot. What would you do in the situation if you were Jimmy Wells? So you can write about your own experience and sketch the character of Jimmy Wells. So dear students, I think this video will be very useful for you to complete this assignment. All the best. Stay tuned to Vijay Speaks. Thank you.